Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa Sutta Shishimana's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa Sutta Shishimana's Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki. Ananta Guri Vaishnavrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giridhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Girigabhadan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki. Ganga Jamunamai Ki. All glorious the assembled devotees. All glorious the assembled devotees. All glorious the assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glorious to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 7, text 43. Uvacha Cha Asahanti Asya Bandhana Anayanam Sati Muchyatam Esha Brahmana Nitaram Guru. Okay. Uvacha Chasyahantyasya Uvacha Kasyahantyasya Bandhanasnayanam Sati Bandhanam Nayanam Sati Muchatam Esha Muchatam Esha Brahmano Nitaram Guru Uvacha Kasyahantyasya Bandhanam Nayanam Sati Muchatam Esha Brahmano Nitaram Guru. Others, sorry. Gotcha. Vaishnavis. Okay. Vachensha Vandanam Nayanam Sati. Uvacha said, Cha and Asahanti being unbearable for her. Asya his. Bandhana being bound. Anayanam bringing him. Sati devoted. Muchatam just get him released. Aisha this. Brahmana a brahmana. Nitaram our. Guru teacher. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. I guess this is Vyasadeva speaking. She could not tolerate Ashvatthama's being bound by ropes, and being a devoted lady, she said, "Release him, for he is a Brahmana, our spiritual master." Purport. As soon as Ashvatthama was brought before Draupadi, she thought it intolerable that a Brahmin should be arrested like a culprit and brought before her in that condition, especially when the Brahmana happened to be a teacher's son. Arjuna arrested Ashvatthama, knowing perfectly well that he was the son of Dronacharya. Krishna also knew him to be so, but both of them condemned the murderer without consideration of his being the son of a Brahmana. According to revealed scriptures, a teacher or spiritual master is liable to be rejected if he proves himself unworthy of the position of a guru or spiritual master. A guru is called also an acharya, or a person who has personally assimilated all the essence of shastras and has helped his disciples to adopt the ways. Ashvatthama failed to discharge the duties of a brahmana or teacher, and therefore he was liable to be rejected from the exalted position of a brahmana. On this consideration, both Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna were right in condemning Ashvatthama. But to a good lady like Draupadi, the matter was considered not from the angle of shastric vision, but as a matter of custom. By custom, Ashvatthama was offered the same respect as offered to his father. It was so because generally the people accept the son of a Brahmana as a real Brahmana, by sentiment only. Factually, the matter is different. A Brahmana is accepted on the merit of qualification and not on the merit of simply being the son of a Brahmana. But in spite of all this, Draupadi desired that Ashvatthama be at once released, and it was all the same a good sentiment for her. This means that a devotee of the Lord can tolerate all sorts of tribulation personally, but still such devotees are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. These are the characteristics of one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Om Ganatam Anandasha Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshut Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Tadati Swaparantikam. So this whole pastime reminds me of a song. It's not exactly a bhajan, but in the spirit of Yukta Vairagya, I will recite the lyrics to this song. Okay? It goes, take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the park. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never come back. Because it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. Because it's one, I'm sparing you, I'm not singing it, okay? Because it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out in the old ball game. Anybody know that song? Some of the Prabhupada disciples might know that song. Shame Amala Bhakti Maharaj wasn't here. But anyway, the point is that, so this is strike 2 for old Ashvatthama. Strike 2. One more strike and he's out. He's really, blowing it all over the place. First, he comes in, he thinks that he's going to do something heroic by killing the 5 sleeping sons of the well, actually, he was intending to kill the Pandavas, and by mistake, he killed the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas, and he thought that was pretty good. And the proof of that is he brought the heads of the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas back to Duryodhana, who was, laying wasted on the battlefield because Bhima broke his thighs or something. And even Duryodhana wasn't pleased. Matter of fact, he was the opposite of pleased. He didn't say, well, that's not. He condemned that action. So it was bad judgment. He made a big mistake. Okay, but did he learn from it? No. So that then when they were chasing him to catch him, rather than have it, well, I made one mistake, and now maybe I should just kind of like stop and fight like a normal person with Arjuna who's chasing after me. He's the son of a Brahmin. I don't know what he really is, because he's not a Brahmin. He's fighting. So is he a Kshatriya? I'm not sure. But in any event, he made a second mistake, a second example of poor judgment, which was that rather than just stop and fight with Arjuna, like in some chivalrous sort of a way, he decided to invoke the Brahmastra. And not just, he could have, because he did it, he's going to do this for the 3rd strike, he could have invoked the Brahmastra and pinpointed it to just kill Arjuna. Because he did that to try to get Maharaj Parikshit. And we're going to read that, we're going to hear about that in a few pages. We're going to hear about that in the upcoming verses, in the next chapter. So he could have done that. No, he could have done that. But did he do that? No. What did he do? He invoked the Brahmastra to basically destroy everything and everyone. Right? That's what he did. So that was also poor judgment. There was a second thing. And of course, they were able to counteract that. And, and then finally, the third strike for him was after he was shown kind of some leniency. I mean, at that point he was captured after Arjuna was able to retract that and counteract that, and they brought him into the camp, and they didn't kill him. They just, at that point, all they did, they cut the jewel from his head and they disfigured him and sent him off. But and that was kind of that they showed him some kindness, some leniency like that. But did he appreciate that? No. What did he do? He just took it as a further opportunity to do further, to be, even be further offensive, and try to kill the last descendant of the Pandu dynasty, of the whole family dynasty like that, which is Maharaj Parikshit in the womb of Uttara. So, 3 strikes, he was out. he's a really good. The only thing we have to be thankful to Ashvatthama for is that he's shown us a really good example of exactly what not to do. How not to, use your intelligence and your mind, because he's just, made every mistake here. And as a result of that, after 3 strikes, after his 3rd strike, he was even condemned by Krishna, because as we've heard from different devotees who've been giving previous classes, that after that, it was only after that, after he tried to kill Maharaj Parikshit in the womb of Uttara, that's when he got cursed by Krishna, that he had to wander for 3,000 years in the swamps and marshes with no human association, no companionship, no human association, and that he would be inflicted by various diseases, and he would be bit by insects and so forth and so on. So that was the punishment that he was cursed to, or Krishna sentenced him to, as a result after that 3rd strike thing. So, once again, very poor judgment. And so, as I said, he's definitely, who we don't want to follow. But on the other hand, I'm going to give an example of somebody who we do want to follow. This story comes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This was during the time when Lord Chaitanya was living in Jagannath Puri. And it was during the, Lord Chaitanya lived in Jagannath Puri for 18 years altogether. Okay? He took sannyas at 24. So for the first 6 years after he took sannyas, he was traveling throughout India. And then for the second 6 years, he was in Jagannath Puri, and he was But wasn't in seclusion those first 6 years. He was associating with the devotees. They were doing kirtan in the Jagannath temple for some, I think Prabhupada said 3-4 hours every evening, something like that, long kirtans. And, he was available, okay? So it was during this period that there was this devotee of Lord Chaitanya. His name was Bhagavan Mishra. And he made friends. He made friendly acquaintance with this Brahmin from Bengal. And this Brahmin, it wasn't a Vaishnav at that point. He was just a Brahmin, regular old Brahmin. And they made friends. And that Brahmin was actually staying with Bhagavan Mishra at his home in Jagannath Puri at the time. And he happened to be a poet. So, by the influence of the association or whatever, he composed some poetry about Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya, poetry in an attempt to glorify Lord Chaitanya, okay? And he recited it to Bhagavan Mishra, who thought, oh, very nice, this is very good. And they had some other devotees hear it, and they thought, yeah, hey, this is good, So Bhagavan Mishra thought, well, I want Lord Chaitanya to hear this. But there was a standard etiquette that Lord Chaitanya, he didn't hear anything unless it was first heard by Swarup Damodar, because Lord Chaitanya, he was very refined in his understanding, obviously, and if somebody presented something to him and it had rasa bas in it, conflicting mellows, it was very disturbing to him. It says in the CC that he became angry. So in order to avoid that, Swarup Damodar would screen. He was the screen. He had to hear it first, and if Swarup Damodar, who also understood those things properly, if he said, yeah, it's okay, that's good, no problem here, and then Lord Chaitanya would hear it. So they understood that they had to go through Swarup Damodar. So Bhagavan Mishra approached Swarup Damodar and asked, okay, this fellow, he's wrote some really nice poetry glorifying Lord Chaitanya, can you hear it? And Swarup Damodar goes, no. Because he knew he wasn't a Vaishnav and, wasn't a devotee. So he really was like thinking, there's no possible way he's going to be able to, it's going to be proper, because he's not a Vaishnav, he doesn't know the Siddhanta, he doesn't know the philosophy properly. So but Bhagavan Mishra was, they were friends. They had all devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Bhagavan Mishra was one of the, confidential devotees of Lord Chaitanya. So he kept asking him. He asked him a second time and a third time, and after like third time of asking him 3 days in a row, Swarup Damodar went, okay. So they listened to, they all got together, Swarup Damodar and Bhagavan Mishra and the poet and a few other devotees were there too. And they said, can you read the introduction to your poetry? Swarup Damodar asked him, and he read it, and he said, okay. And it was in the introduction. It was comparing Lord Jagannath to an inanimate object, and it was making the point that Lord Chaitanya was the life, in the life of Lord Jagannath, who was basically being compared to an inanimate object. So, and then Swarup Damodar asked him. He gave him he heard it, and he asked him to explain it. And sure enough, he kind of explained it, something along those lines. So, at that point, Swarup Damodar said, you are a fool. He just chastised him. I mean, full on, not maliciously, but, righteously. You're a fool. And actually, with every word you present here, you're just digging your own, you're further condemning yourself, because you don't know this philosophy. You have no business, trying to present this kind of poetry. You don't know. Anyway, so he really chastised him, right? Heavily. And when everybody heard what Swarup Damodar was saying, all the other devotees, they came to their senses too, and they realized, oh yeah, we were just being sentimental. I mean, we weren't thinking critically here, because Swarup Damodar is spot on. He's on everything he's saying, So this poor Brahmin, he didn't know where to turn, He just kind of put his head down, and he just, okay, And as Swarup Damodar could see that, he wasn't trying to defend himself. He wasn't trying to retaliate or anything like that. He just he was taking it. And Swarup Damodar kind of felt bad that, okay, I got to give this guy a path upwards, So he said, well, actually, you're kind of fortunate in one sense, because you use this, according to the words he used, like some of the acharyas do this. Sometimes some demon tries to blaspheme Krishna, and then the acharyas will take what they say and they kind of interpret it in a slightly different way, and it's kind of glorifying him. So Srup Damodar did that with his poetry, and he said, actually, so in one sense, you actually have glorified Lord Chaitanya here, so it's not so bad, But so he kind of let him off the hook a bit, and then he went on to say, but the thing is this: if you really, you want to do this kind of thing, it's okay, that's good, but you gotta Bhagavatastani. How's it go? Gia, yeah, Bhagavata Purdigiya, Bhagavatastani. You have to take shelter of the bona fide devotees. You have to hear from the elevated bona fide devotees and learn the Siddhanta properly, and assimilate all this, knowledge, and then you'll be able to do it. So that's what his recommendation was to him. And, so this Brahmin was still kind of like, he'd just been heavily he was a Brahmin, he wasn't just some fool off the street, so he was really, but he did the right thing. It's described that after that, he was humble. He took a straw of the street, heard that expression, straw of the street in your mouth. He did that, according to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he just paid a dandavats. And actually, does anybody know what the significance of the straw of the street is? The straw in the mouth is? I had that explained. I never knew. And I just learned it about a year ago when I was on the Parikram. I heard Vaisheshika who explained it. Does anybody know? I'll tell you then. The straw of the street signifies this. In India, what they would do is if somebody did something really wrong and they wanted forgiveness for it, they take the straw and they put it in their mouth, and the idea is so they go around to everybody and they be begging forgiveness, and if you got the straw in your mouth, you can't say anything. You see? So in other words, I did this. So the idea, the mood is, I did this thing wrong. I know it. I'm really sorry, and here I am with the straw of the street in my mouth. And now you could say whatever you want, chastise me in any way that you feel is appropriate, and I'm not going to say anything in retaliation. I got the straw in my mouth. I can't open my mouth because, I got the straw in my mouth. That was how he explained it. So that's what it says. He had the straw of the street in his mouth, and he paid the dandavats. And there he was, just like that, in front of all the devotees. And then it describes that the devotees, they went, well, okay, he's taking the humble position. So, and Srup Damodar just saw the reaction of all the other devotees, and he went, okay, yeah, he's taking the humble position. And they just decided, okay, well, yeah, so what? Okay, you made a mistake, that's okay. And then they went into Lord Chaitanya, and they described the whole incident. And Lord Chaitanya's mood was, it's not really elaborately, describe it, you can tell. Lord Chaitanya's mood was, well, okay, yeah, he made a mistake, and he took the humble position, and everybody's happy with his, the way he dealt with the whole thing. So, yeah, I accept him. And he was accepted. And he was accepted at that point as one of the, devotees of Lord Chaitanya, and he went on to become a regular old devotee of Lord Chaitanya. So that's a real success story. There's somebody, he made a mistake, but rather than compound it, by taking shelter of his false ego and trying to, defend himself or even worse, criticize Srup Damodar in return or something like that, which is kind of like what Ashvatthama did. He was fortunate. He took shelter of the right thing. He was humble and he was submissive, and he got the mercy. He went from being a regular old Brahmin who didn't understand the philosophy to being one of the confidential associates of Lord Chaitanya. So that's a really good, lesson to be learned. And there's another couple important points in this purport as well that we should mention. So it's talking about, in one point in the purport here, Arjuna and Krishna, they were dealing, Prabhupada says here, they were dealing with Ashvatthama according to the Shastra. It says here, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna were right in condemning Ashvatthama. You see, but it says here, but a lady like Draupadi, the matter was considered not from the angle of Shastric vision, but a matter of custom. So, that's something to be said for that. Custom isn't exactly sentiment. I think there's the Shastra, there's custom, which might not be exactly lined up with the Shastra, and then there's just being sentimental. So it's not being accused of being sentimental here, but custom, culture, like that was the culture, so. And Prabhupada goes on to say here that, but in the next paragraph he says, but in spite of all this, Draupadi desired that Ashvatthama be at once released, and it was all the same a good sentiment for her. Now, when I first read that, I thought to myself, is Prabhupada, what's that? Is Prabhupada kind of saying, is he saying that, oh yeah, what can you expect from a less intelligent woman? But I don't think so. I don't think that's not my understanding after I thought about it a bit. And the next sentence kind of supports that that's not the way to understand it, because he says this means that a devotee of the Lord can tolerate all sorts of tribulation personally, but still such devotees are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. So I think what Prabhupada means by it was all the same, a good sentiment for her was, considering her situation, how much she was injured, how much she was hurt by this whole thing. It's amazing, and it was a good sentiment that she was prepared to consider being taking revenge. Basically, she didn't want revenge. That's it. She doesn't go on to say that poor Ashvatthama or anything like that. She doesn't talk about him, but she doesn't want revenge, and that's a good sentiment for her. And also, when she gets a chance to continue to speak here, which she's about to do, she points out that she doesn't want to see Ashvatthama's mother suffer like she's suffering, crying always. She's so unhappy because of what happened. She's crying always, and she doesn't want to see Ashvatthama's mother, Creepy, who's kind of innocent, be in that same position. So that's that was what I think. That's the way I understand that. Now, somebody might ask, well, this is like what this is a pretty heavy situation. How is it that Krishna's devotees, these intimate devotees of Krishna, are being put in this situation? So many, who was it? Queen Kunti later on prays, let these calamities, so many difficult situations are coming to them one after the other. How do we understand that? Well, one thing is that the Bhagavatam is not like the Manu Samhita. This is not a lesson in crime and punishment. You're not getting a lesson in crime and punishment from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's way beyond that. And actually, Prabhupada kind of gives in one of the previous purports, Prabhupada gives a bit of an insight into what we're really experiencing here in these pages of the Bhagavatam. He says, Lord Sri Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It was not that Arjuna was incomplete in the sense of his duty, nor was Lord Sri Krishna unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty. But Lord Sri Krishna put to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty. And Prabhupada doesn't say, but I'll say, not only he magnifies it, they're already great. And by putting them in these difficult situations, Krishna knows that, they're going to, well, I'll leave the rest of it. The gopis were put to such tests as well. Prahlad Maharaj was also put to such a test. All pure devotees come out successful in their respective tests by the Lord. So Krishna puts his pure devotees in these difficult situations, knowing he's confident, of course, everybody has free will, but Krishna's confident that they're going to pass the test, and that's going to even increase their, glory and their elevation and advancement in Krishna consciousness, and it's also going to make it well known for worldwide at that time, and it'll be immortalized in the pages of Bhagavatam and for all history like that. So that's what's going on here. It's not just, as I said, it's not just a lesson in crime and punishment. The Bhagavatam is way beyond that. It's Krishna, putting his devotees in situations to give them an opportunity to demonstrate paro dharma, the topmost religious principles, the topmost considerations like that, and it's simultaneously glorify them. So that's what's going on here, and it's difficult to understand this. It's actually, unless you're a somewhat advanced in devotional, well, Prabhupada's telling us, but otherwise, you might misunderstand it. But that's the way Krishna. It's very difficult to understand. Bhishma Dev is, I can't remember even the translation, but there's some. And later on, we're going to hear the prayers of Bhishma Dev just before he's passing away, and he makes some sort of statement like that. Very difficult to understand what Krishna's up to, right? There's a verse like that. I mean, I can't remember but he's very. Yeah. Yeah, his purpose is very difficult to understand. Tom, yeah, I'll give a quick example of that if I can. How am I doing? I can't see the clock. Is it 6 minutes left? Okay. So, yeah, there's an example of that. And another pastime of Lord Chaitanya, there was this devotee, Pradyumna Mishra, and he came to Lord Chaitanya and he wanted to, he said, I want to hear, about Krishna Katha. He was in good standing, and he did it in a very humble, submissive way. And Lord Chaitanya said, well, actually, yeah, that's very good, but you should go to Ramananda Roy, because I even hear from him. So Pradyumna Mishra said, okay, sure. And he went to Ramananda Roy, and he was there, and he was waiting. And he got there, and the servant said, okay, yeah, I'll let him know you're here. He's busy at the moment. He's, doing something. Works out Ramananda Roy was training some girls to do a dance for Lord Jagannath, and dealing with them in a very intimate way. Anyway, so Pradyumna Mishra, it took some time, and finally when Ramananda Roy actually met Pradyumna Mishra, it was the end of the day. So, Pradyumna Mishra wasn't finding any fault. He was just kind of like he didn't know what to make of the whole situation. But he was he's an advanced devotee himself and a Brahmin, and so he just he reserved judgment, and he just was. But when he finally got the opportunity to speak to Ramananda Roy, he just said, well, I've just come to see you. Ramananda Roy said, how could I serve you? What can I do? He very humble attitude. And he said, no, I've just come to see you for my own purification, and now I've seen you, and I'm happy, and, I'm going to go. And so he went. So then Lord Chaitanya saw him the next day and said, so did you hear about Krishna from Ramananda Roy? And Pradyumna Mishra said, no, I didn't. I didn't. He described the situation, what happened. It was late in the day, but then he also, in a proper way, with the proper attitude, he explained, well, this Ramananda Roy is a pretty unusual fellow. When I got there, this is what he was doing, and Lord Chaitanya said, yeah, that's Ramananda Roy. He's so elevated. His mind is like stone or like wood. He's so fixed in transcendental consciousness that only he could do that. I can't even do that. If I see the form of a woman, even in a doll, I'm becoming agitated. But Ramananda Roy is so fixed, so absorbed in transcendence that he could do anything, and it doesn't disturb him. He's the only one who has that authority. Anyway, so he told him to go back. He told him, don't let that. Just don't forget about that. Don't worry about that. Just go back and hear from him. So he went back, and Ramananda Roy, spoke Krishna Katha to him, and Pradyumna Mishra, became very enlivened by that. But so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he makes the point that at the end of that, relating that pastime, that you can't understand. Don't think you're going to understand the purpose of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. You're not. It's very deep, and you're not going to understand it. See, and he gave as examples. He gave the examples that Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda Roy was considered a Sudra, right? He was, or even lower. He was. Lord Chaitanya heard from him. Lord Chaitanya heard from somebody who was considered a Sudra. Lord Chaitanya was coming from a Brahmin family. He was a sannyasi. Socially there was quite a bit of a distance between them. But and not only did he hear from himself, but he sent Pradyumna Mishra, who was an elevated Brahmin, purified Brahmin, to also hear from Ramananda Roy. Sanatana Goswami was basically a Muslim. We know he wasn't. Because he's from a Saraswat Brahmin family, but by his association with the Nawab Hussain Shah, etc., and that that Islamic government, he was like basically a Muslim. He had adopted. He had a Muslim name, Dabi Akash, Shakir Malik, and they had some of the habits. So, but Lord Chaitanya used him to, demonstrate elevated devotional service, and probably the most amazing example is Haridas Thakur. See, so there's Lord Chaitanya who can understand. He's showing in an amazing way. The power, the glories of and the potency of taking shelter of the holy name and Krishna consciousness, even through these people who are so socially so-called degraded. But if you couldn't understand that if you weren't a devotee. Anyway, so you're not going to be able to figure out the purpose of Krishna. You're not going to be able to figure out the purpose of Lord Chaitanya unless you're yourself are a very confidential, surrendered devotee, and then they may reveal it to you. See? So we should just, in conclusion, follow in the footsteps of that Brahmin poet. He was smart. That was a smart guy. not Ashvatthama. That Brahmin poet, that's the kind of, we should remember him and try to follow. He was submissive. And just by being, he made a mistake. He really made a mistake. You know, I mean, Srup Damodar had to call him a fool and chastise him, but because he, you know, he I guess his intentions was sincere, so he just took the humble position. He was submissive. He just, with the straw of the street in his mouth, Dandabats, okay, I don't know what, you know, please just give me some mercy. He's probably down there praying while he was doing it. And he got the mercy. He was, okay, no problem. That's no big deal. People make mistakes, and, you know, he got on it. So we should follow in the footsteps of him. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Archita Prabhu.
Haribol Prabhu, thank you for a nice class. I would like to know where that definition of the straw in his mouth came from, because it seems to fly in the face of Prabodhananda Saraswati's recommendation. That first prophet quoted many times, Dante Nidaya, that for preaching, you put a straw in your mouth, and then you go in and you say, hey, Sadhava. So you're supposed to speak. And if you think about it, you can speak with a straw in your mouth. It's not a problem. You try it. Put a straw in your mouth. Hey, Sadhava, you can speak with a straw in your mouth. It doesn't prevent you from speaking. And Prabodhananda Saraswati says, put a straw in your mouth, approach them on the street, say, hey, Sadhava, you're a great devotee. And then they will naturally ask you, what do you want? Forget everything you know and just meditate on the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So you can speak with a straw in your mouth, and that's what Prabodhananda Saraswati recommends. I would like to know where that definition came from. I never saw it anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you where I got it from, by Sheshika Prabhu. I went on his yatra when, not this past Gaur Purnim, but the one before that, and that's how I heard him explain it. But yeah, that's a good point you're making. How would that would contradict what Prabodhananda Saraswati is saying? So I'll have to ring him up and ask him about that. Where did he get that from? Yeah. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Mother Nagapatni.
Thank you, perfect class, Prabhu. Very nice. I was thinking about how Ashvatthama, he had this problem with pride, and it shows how difficult it was for him to give this up. He went to such extended lengths to destroy the Pandavas, and still he couldn't give up his pride, even though he was punished in various different ways. So it's an interesting example for what we have to go through to give up our pride.
Yeah. Actually, you just remind me of one other point I was going to make, and I can make it really quickly. That, you know, he was given, you pay a price for being merciful and lenient sometimes. And he's an example of that. You know, that rather than Arjuna, I mean, Krishna told Arjuna, kill him immediately, and he didn't do it. And, okay, but the result was, and I'm not saying it was a mistake, but they gave him another chance, and what did he do? He invoked the Brahmastra weapon to kill Maharaj Parikshit. I mean, if Krishna wasn't, and when we read it, when we're going to see that the Pandavas all were getting their weapons out, but Krishna had to, it was Krishna who saved Maharaj Parikshit, not the Pandavas, by trying to counteract that Brahmastra, because there wasn't time. So Krishna had to intervene and personally save Maharaj Parikshit. And then another example of that, of, you know, how it's maybe not a good idea, or you have to pay a price for being lenient or kind or whatever, compassionate, is Jayadratha. Jayadratha was, he was the son-in-law, son-in-law to Dhritarashtra and brother-in-law to all his sons, because he, you know, Dhritarashtra had 100 sons and he had one daughter. And what's his name? Jayadratha married the one daughter of Dhritarashtra, who was the sister of all. Okay, so married man, but he decided he liked Draupadi, and he either attempted to kidnap her or kidnapped her. I can't remember which. If he's actually successful, he just attempted. But he went far enough so that he was an aggressor. He was clearly an aggressor, and it states in the there's a Vedic injunction that there's 6 kinds of aggressors that can be killed immediately, and there's no sin incurred in killing such aggressors. And one of them is somebody who tries to steal your wife, and that's exactly clearly what he was trying to do. So they didn't kill him. You know, they could have killed him for that, but they spared him. And as a result of that, you know, they just cut his hair a funny way, like they did with, what's his name, Rukmi, I believe. And but you know, later he comes back and he performs all these penances and austerities like that. He gets a benediction from Lord Shiva. He wanted to be invincible, you know, and Lord Shiva said, well, I can't do that, but at least for one day. You know, I think we heard Shamakun tell us, at least for one day you could be. So that was why they, you know, and what happened was on one day in the battle, the Kauravas came with this Chatra Vyuha formation, and Arjuna knew how to break into it and get out of it, but he was occupied in another part of the battlefield with Krishna. So Abhimanyu went in, but he didn't know how to get out. And then when Abhimanyu went in, he broke the formation, he got in himself, then Jayadratha came and closed it, you know, and they, because he had that benediction that he would, for one day he'd be invincible, nobody could get by him. And then, so nobody could go in there to help Abhimanyu, and that's how and then all the other warriors ganged up on Abhimanyu and they killed him. So they, you know, they paid a price for being lenient, and maybe that's, I don't know, just thought I'd throw that out there.
In contrast, the devotee is grateful for the difficulties. They thank Krishna, like Kunti did, thanking him, and again wishing for these difficulties, because the difficulties cause a devotee to think more of Krishna, whereas a demoniac mentality will just think of their own revenge and gratification.
I guess that's the overriding consideration. Anybody else had something? Or okay, Mata, and then one last one, and over there.
Thank you. I find it interesting that Draupadi, she acted in a different way with Dushashan, and he was the son of great parents, and his mother ended up crying too. If you could say something about that.
Yeah, Dushashan. Well, okay. Are you referring to eventually what happened to him? Yeah. Well, and Draupadi kind of was pleased by the whole thing. You're saying. She was being disrobed. Dushashan was the person who tried to disrobe her. Was actually the person who was pulling off the sari, and she appealed. Everybody knows she appealed to Bhishma, she appealed to Drona, she appealed to Dhritarashtra. I don't know who else she appealed to, but they were all silent. Nobody was coming to her rescue, and finally she was holding the sari on with one hand and praying with another, and then she eventually just gave up trying to hold the sari and just prayed to Krishna. Krishna supplied the unlimited sari. But then after that actually it happened, Bhima stood up and he took a vow. And if you ever, I don't know, I'm not encouraging people to watch Mahabharata videos, but if you ever happen to see that episode on the Mahabharata thing on the YouTube, it's like Bhima was really like, whoa, was he like, burning with anger, and he just said, I'm going to take this vow now. Nobody has ever taken a vow like this in the past, or is anybody going to ever take a vow like this in the future? Something like that. And he said, I'm going to, rip that Dushashan, I'm going to rip his arm from his chest and drink his blood, or something like that, And he did it, and everybody was quiet when he did it. So, Hare Krishna, what you asked me what I say about that. I think it's justified. I mean, devotees aren't. Not every devotee has to. And that was Bhima's mood. Bhima never was. That was his. He was a pure devotee too, and he was in that, that rasa. And I think that was. What do you think?
Well, that makes sense, because I also heard something that when Draupadi had to discredit Karna when he wanted was in the Swayamvar, is because it was her whole purpose was to marry Arjuna. And so it would have interfered.
Yeah.
Because he was definitely a great warrior. And that makes sense, because it had to fulfill that vow.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess the one point is, as I kind of touched upon in the class, that when you're considering these pastimes, there's a lot more than mundane morality involved. It's a lot of, rasa and devotees, and just, seeing how the devotee, understanding the psychological dynamics of a devotee, how they respond to certain situations, and how Krishna conscious they are in situations, and that other people would find extremely difficult. They're able to respond in a way that Krishna is pleased with, and that's all, the more glorification for them. So anyway, I'll stop there. That's it. Granto Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.